A 4-year-old beggar girl with cancer forced to marry a millionaire. But what she reveals at the altar shocks everyone. Comment with a score from 0 to 10 for my story. Your opinion is very important, and subscribe to my channel to support my work. I'm counting on your help. The rain lashed down on the asphalt of the sprawling, chaotic metropolis, creating miniature rivers in the clogged gutters. The roar of traffic mingled with the sound of raindrops drumming on the awnings of the commercial buildings as pedestrians scurried for cover. Amid this urban pandemonium, a tiny figure attracted attention despite herself. A 4-year-old girl who looked barely 2, so fragile and small that she seemed as if she could be swept away by the wind at any moment. She was sitting on the sidewalk in front of the city's biggest mall, shivering under a piece of waterlogged cardboard. Her large, expressive eyes were striking against her gaunt frame, and she clutched a worn teddy bear tightly to her chest, one ear missing and its fur yellowed with age. Tears mingled with the rain on her dirty face, creating small, clean streaks amidst the grime. Across the avenue, a man in his early 30s observed the scene through the tinted windows of his imported car. His striking features resembled a movie star, with the allure of a Hollywood heartthrob that made women turn their heads when he passed. The millionaire had built a vast financial empire in recent years, amassing an impressive fortune through savvy investments in the stock market and ventures in Bitcoin that had skyrocketed in value. But all his wealth failed to fill the emptiness he had felt since losing his wife in an accident 3 years prior. His assets in dollars seemed endless. The dividends arrived monthly in astronomical sums, and his cash flow allowed for every luxury imaginable. Even so, he felt completely lost, as if all that money was meaningless. Something about the image of that helpless child resonated deeply with him. Perhaps it was her extreme vulnerability, or the way she embraced the teddy bear as if it were her only protection in the world. Without a second thought, he told his driver to pull over and stepped out into the downpour. As he approached the girl, she raised her enormous eyes to him, and for a moment they simply looked at each other in silence. The child showed no fear, only a childlike curiosity mixed with hope. He crouched down to her level, feeling the rain soaking his designer suit. "Where's your family, sweetie?" he asked gently. The girl pointed to an older woman dozing against the wall of a closed bank a few yards away. The woman must have been about 60, with graying hair and patched clothing that tried to shield her from the cold. Even in sleep, she kept one hand outstretched towards the child, as if to protect her even unconsciously. "Does she take care of you?" the millionaire continued. The girl nodded, still hugging her teddy bear. "Nana's tired," she said in a voice so quiet that he had to lean in to hear. "She always gets tired when it rains." The businessman felt a pang in his chest. The situation was more complicated than he had initially imagined. He took out some high-denomination bills from his wallet, but hesitated before handing them over. Money would solve the immediate problem, but there was something about this situation that demanded more than a simple handout. "What's your name?" he asked, putting the money back. "I don't know," the girl replied, shrugging her small shoulders. "Nana calls me Angel." The response disturbed him even more. How could a 4-year-old not know her own name? He looked again at the older woman, who continued to sleep despite the rain soaking her clothes. There was something strange about this whole situation, something he couldn't quite put his finger on. "Are you hungry, Angel?" he asked, using the nickname the child had mentioned. Her eyes lit up, and she nodded vigorously. "Nana said maybe we can buy some bread today." The millionaire's heart broke. While he possessed enough assets to buy entire blocks of the city, this child considered a piece of bread a remote possibility. He stood up, determined to do something concrete. "Wait here," he said. "I'll get you both some food." He rushed into the mall, which had opened despite the early hour, and bought bags full of food, dry children's clothing, and blankets. When he returned, he found the older woman awake, watching him with suspicion as the girl excitedly told her about the handsome man who had promised to help. "We don't need charity," the woman said in a gruff voice, but her eyes betrayed her gratitude. "It's not charity," the millionaire replied. "It's just one person helping another." The woman studied him for a few seconds before accepting the bags. When she saw the amount of food and clothing, her eyes filled with tears that she tried to hide. The girl, on the other hand, was ecstatic with a pink cardigan he had chosen especially for her. "Why are you doing this?" the older woman asked. The businessman looked at the child, who was now smiling for the first time since he had seen her. "Because some things are more important than money," he replied, surprising himself with the sincerity of the answer. As he began to walk away, the girl cried out, "Will you come back?" He turned, seeing the hope etched on that angelic face. "I will," he promised, not yet knowing how that promise would completely change the course of his life. But there was something in the older woman's eyes that bothered him, a tension she was trying to hide. And as he walked away in the still falling rain, a question echoed in his mind. What secrets were these two hiding? In the following days, the millionaire couldn't get the image of the girl out of his head. During important meetings in his office on the top floor of a mirrored skyscraper, he found himself looking out the window towards the mall, wondering if they were okay. His partners noticed his distraction, especially when he abruptly cancelled a deal that would have generated millions in profits just to leave early. "You've been acting strange," his right-hand man commented during a meeting on investments in international funds. "Since when do you care more about the street than our assets?" The businessman didn't reply. How could he explain that a strange child had stirred him in a way that none of his investments could? He had built an empire based on cold numbers and rational decisions, but now he found himself consumed by an inexplicable need to protect that little creature. The following Wednesday, he returned to the same spot. The rain had stopped, but the sky remained overcast, creating a melancholy atmosphere over the metropolis. He found the girl and the older woman in the same place, as if they had never left. The child was wearing the pink cardigan he had given her, but it was already dirty again. "You came back!" the girl exclaimed, running towards him with the teddy bear in her arms. The genuine joy on her face stirred something deep within his chest. It had been years since someone had been so happy just to see him. Since his wife's passing, people only approached him interested in his money or influence. "I promised I would," he said, crouching down to talk to her at eye level. The older woman approached, but kept her distance. There was something cautious in her movements, as if she was always ready to run. "We didn't expect you to show up again," she said hesitantly. "Why not? People like you don't usually care about people like us for very long." The response revealed a deep bitterness, born of past disappointments. The millionaire realized that this woman had learned not to trust promises, especially from wealthy people. "Can I know your names?" he asked, addressing the older woman mainly. The woman hesitated for a long moment. "You can call me Nana, and she's my granddaughter." The hesitation was subtle, but he noticed it. There was something unsaid in that introduction, something the woman preferred to omit. The businessman decided not to push for now, but he took note of the information. During the following weeks, he established a routine of visits. He always brought food, clean clothes, and small gifts for the girl. She greeted him with increasing enthusiasm, telling him about her days with an innocence that contrasted drastically with the harshness of her reality. "Today I saw a wounded bird," she said one sunny afternoon, showing him a drawing made with colored chalk on the ground. "Nana said it will get better, just like me." "Just like you?" the millionaire asked, alarmed. "Are you hurt?" The girl started to answer, but the older woman quickly interrupted. "She was just imagining children's things," she said, but her tone sounded forced. It was then that he noticed for the first time the child was paler than she should be. And sometimes she tired easily, even when playing sitting down. There were times when she would stop what she was doing and simply sit quietly, as if she needed to gather energy. "Does she see a doctor regularly?" he asked directly to the woman. "When possible," was the evasive answer. The businessman knew that when possible meant almost never for people living on the streets. His wealth allowed access to the best private doctors in the city, but he realized that any suggestion to that effect would be received with distrust. The following week, during one of his visits, something changed. The girl was visibly weaker, leaning against the wall, while the older woman tried to keep her hydrated with water from a plastic bottle. "She hasn't been well since yesterday," the woman admitted, and for the first time her voice carried real concern. "It started with a fever that won't break." The millionaire didn't hesitate. "I'm taking you to the hospital right now." "We can't afford it," the woman began. "I'll pay," he interrupted firmly. "It's not up for discussion." The drive to the nearest private hospital was tense. The girl was semi-conscious in the back seat, nestled in the older woman's arms, while the driver navigated the city's heavy traffic. The businessman found himself making silent promises to any higher power that might be listening. At the hospital, his influence and financial power opened every door. Specialized doctors were called immediately, tests were ordered, and a private suite was reserved for the young patient. "We need to run some tests," the chief physician explained after the initial examination. "There are signs that suggest something more serious than a simple fever." While the girl was taken for tests, the millionaire found himself alone with the older woman in the waiting room. The silence between them was charged with unresolved tension. "Why are you really doing this?" she asked suddenly. "Because she needs it," he replied simply. "Nobody does something like this without wanting something in return." The distrust in her voice was painful to hear. "Not everyone is driven by self-interest." The woman studied him for a long moment. "You don't know anything about us, do you? I know you need help, and I know I'm able to help. What if I told you there are things you wouldn't understand? Things that would make everything more complicated?" Her mysterious tone sent a chill down the businessman's spine. "What kind of things?" Before she could answer, the doctor returned with a grave expression. "We need to talk about the preliminary results," he said, looking alternately at the millionaire and the woman, "and we need to know more about the child's medical history." The older woman paled visibly. "What kind of information?" "Family history, genetic conditions, any prior treatments." The doctor paused. "The tests show some irregularities that we need to investigate further." It was at this moment that the millionaire realized he was about to discover something that would change everything. The older woman looked at him with an expression that mixed fear and despair, as if she were deciding whether to run or finally tell the truth. "Doctor," she said in a trembling voice, "I need to speak with you in private first." The doctor and the older woman went to a private room, leaving the millionaire alone in the hospital hallway. He walked back and forth, watching the constant movement of nurses and doctors, while his mind swirled with possibilities. The wealth he had accumulated over the years, all the investments in gold and Bitcoin, all the capital that guaranteed him millionaire dividends monthly, none of that seemed to matter at that moment. Through the window of the room, he could see the girl sleeping, connected to monitors that emitted regular beeps. She looked even smaller in the hospital bed, like a fragile doll surrounded by equipment that seemed too big for her tiny body. The teddy bear was carefully positioned next to her, like a silent guardian. 15 minutes passed before the doctor returned alone, with an even more serious expression than before. The older woman wasn't with him, and that made the businessman worry even more. "Where is she?" he asked immediately. "She needed to leave to resolve some personal matters, but she authorized me to talk to you about the child's situation." The millionaire felt a weight in his stomach. "What situation?" "The preliminary tests confirmed our most concerning suspicions. The girl has a rare and serious medical condition which explains her fragile appearance and the episodes of weakness that you must have noticed." The world seemed to stop around him. "Serious how?" "It's a degenerative disease. that affects multiple systems of the body. Without adequate and constant treatment, it is... The doctor hesitated, choosing his words carefully. It's a condition that significantly compromises life expectancy. The businessman's legs weakened, and he needed to lean against the wall. Is there treatment? Yes, but it's extremely expensive and complex. It requires a multidisciplinary team, imported medications, frequent hospitalizations, and even so... The doctor paused significantly. Even with the best treatment available, we can't guarantee a cure. Only a better quality of life and possibly more time. The millionaire processed the information in silence. His fortune, his investments in gold and bitcoins, all the capital he had accumulated, suddenly had a clear and urgent purpose. How much does this treatment cost? We're talking about hundreds of thousands, possibly millions of dollars over time. That's why most families can't afford... I'll afford it, he interrupted without hesitation. I want the best treatment available, no matter the cost. The doctor looked at him with surprise. Sir, do you understand that this will represent an immense financial commitment indefinitely? Doctor, my cash flow allows it without compromising my financial stability. I want her to have access to everything that medicine can offer. In the following hours, a medical team was quickly assembled. Specialists were called in from other hospitals, more detailed tests were scheduled, and a treatment plan began to be developed. The businessman signed checks and authorizations without hesitation, each high number he saw only reinforcing his determination. When the girl woke up in the late afternoon, she found the room full of flowers and new toys. Her big eyes lit up when she saw all of it. But it was the millionaire's smile that truly made her happy. "Did you stay here the whole time?" she asked in a weak but curious voice. "I did, and I'll stay as many times as necessary." "Nana said you're my guardian angel," the child continued, hugging the teddy bear. "Is it true?" The simple question deeply moved him. "If you want me to be, I am." During the following days, he practically lived in the hospital. He cancelled important meetings, delegated decisions about his business to subordinates, and focused all his attention on the well-being of the girl. She responded well to the initial treatments, showing more energy and color in her face. It was during one of those afternoons that something touching happened. The girl had asked for paper and crayons and spent hours drawing while receiving intravenous medication. When he asked what she was creating, she proudly showed him a series of drawings that left him speechless. "It's a wedding," she explained, pointing to figures in white dresses and black suits. "Like in the movies the nurse showed me on TV." The drawings were simple, as would be expected of a 4-year-old. But there was something deeply moving in the way she had captured the details: flowers, rings, smiles on the faces of the figures. "Do you like weddings?" he asked, genuinely curious. "I think so. It looks like people are very happy." She paused, looking at the drawing. "Nana said my mom had a beautiful wedding before I was born." It was the first time she had mentioned her parents, and the millionaire felt his curiosity piqued. "Does Nana tell you stories about your mum?" "Sometimes. She said my mum was very pretty and loved me very much." The girl's voice became melancholic. "But she had to go away." "Where to?" "To heaven. Nana said that sometimes people need to go to heaven before their time." The businessman's heart squeezed. The child had lost her mother too early, and apparently the father was not present. This explained why she was in the care of the older woman, but there were still many unanswered questions. "Do you miss her?" "I do, but Nana takes good care of me." "And now you do too." She smiled at him with an innocence that made his eyes fill with tears. "When I get better, can I have a wedding too?" The question caught him completely off guard. "You want to get married?" "I want to wear a pretty dress like in the drawings, and have flowers and a big cake." Her eyes sparkled with fantasy. "Do you think anyone would want to marry me?" The millionaire felt his heart break and rebuild at the same time. "Anyone would be very lucky to marry you. Even if I'm sick." The question revealed that despite her age, she at least partially understood her condition. Especially because you're brave. It was at that moment that the older woman returned carrying a small bag. She'd been absent for 2 days, and the businessman noticed that she seemed more tense than before, as if she had made difficult decisions. "How is she?" she asked, approaching the bed. "Better. The medications are working," replied the doctor who was accompanying them, "but we need to talk about long-term treatment." The woman nodded but avoided the millionaire's gaze. There was something different in her demeanor, a resignation that hadn't been there before. "Nana, look what I drew!" exclaimed the girl, showing her wedding drawings. The older woman looked at the papers, and her expression became even more melancholic. "Very pretty, Angel. She said she wants to have a wedding when she grows up," commented the businessman, trying to ease the tension he felt in the air. The woman looked at him directly for the first time in days. "Sometimes children's dreams are more important than reality," she said, in a voice loaded with meaning that he couldn't decipher completely. That night, after the girl fell asleep, the older woman asked to speak with him in the hallway. Her expression was grave, and he sensed that he was about to hear something that would change everything again. "I need to tell you the truth about who we really are," she said, looking around to make sure they were alone. The hospital hallway was silent, with only the distant sound of monitors and occasional footsteps of nurses. The older woman took a deep breath before beginning to speak, as if preparing to reveal secrets kept for a long time. "My real name is Rose, and I'm not her grandmother," she said in a low voice, looking at the floor. "I worked for 15 years at an orphanage on the outskirts of the city, caring for abandoned children." The millionaire felt a chill in his stomach. "And her? She came to us 2 years ago, when she was only 2 years old. She was found in a cardboard box on the orphanage door during a cold winter dawn." Rose paused, wiping the tears that were starting to well up in her eyes. "She was almost frozen, malnourished, with only that teddy bear and a note." "What note?" "It just said, 'Please take care of my princess. She deserves to be loved,' signed by someone who identified themselves as a desperate mother." The revelation hit the businessman like a punch to the gut. The story about the mother who had gone to heaven was an invention to protect the child from the cruel truth of abandonment. "Why are you on the streets then?" "What happened to the orphanage?" Rose sighed deeply. "The orphanage closed 6 months ago due to lack of government funding. The children were redistributed to other institutions in the capital, but she—" Her voice faltered for a moment. "She was already sick. No institution wanted to accept a child with such complex medical needs. And you decided to take care of her alone. I couldn't abandon her. During the 2 years she spent with us, she became special to everyone. Always smiling, always trying to comfort other children when they cried. How could I let her go to a place where she would just be another problem?" The millionaire now understood the fierce loyalty he perceived in the relationship between them. Rose had sacrificed her own stability to protect a child who wasn't even related to her. "Why didn't you tell me this before?" "Because rich people sometimes make promises they can't keep. And because—" She hesitated. "Because I feared you would want to take her for adoption when you found out she has no family." The possibility had never crossed his mind, but now that Rose mentioned it, he realized it was a valid concern. "I would never take her away from you." "How can I be sure?" "Because you're the only family she knows, and because I've seen how you love each other." Rose studied him for a long moment, as if trying to read his soul. "There are more things you need to know." "What else?" "The doctors at the orphanage already knew about her condition. They did some basic tests, but they said it would require very expensive treatment that the institution couldn't afford. That's why—" Her voice trembled. "That's why they told me she probably wouldn't live to see 5. The world seemed to collapse around him. "Did they give a timeline?" 6 months to a year, at the time. "That was 4 months ago. The millionaire leaned against the wall, processing the devastating information. The girl who had captured his heart so unexpectedly might only have a few months to live, despite all the money he was willing to invest. "That's why you ran away with her from the system. Because I thought that if she had little time, at least she should be loved and protected by someone who cared. I didn't want her to spend her last months being just a medical case in a cold institution." The depth of Rose's sacrifice deeply moved him. She had chosen to live on the streets and face every imaginable hardship to ensure that a dying child felt loved. "Rose, with the treatment we're providing now, the doctors here are more hopeful," she interrupted him, "but they are also more honest about the chances. Even with everything you are doing, they can't promise a cure." In the following days, this conversation constantly echoed in the businessman's mind. He doubled his efforts to ensure the best possible treatment, bringing in specialists from other countries and authorizing experimental procedures that cost fortunes in dollars. His monthly dividends were directed almost entirely to medical costs, and he began to liquidate some of his Bitcoin investments to ensure sufficient funds. The girl, oblivious to the full gravity of her situation, continued to radiate joy whenever he appeared. She had begun to call him "my prince," inspired by the fairy tales the nurses read to her. "Prince," she said one sunny afternoon, while drawing more wedding dresses on her colored papers, "do you think real princesses get sick sometimes?" "I think so," he replied carefully. "But even when they get sick, they're still princesses. And can they get married even when they're sick?" "Of course they can, especially if they find a prince who really loves them." She smiled radiantly. "So when I get out of here, can I marry you?" The childlike question caught him completely off guard. He knew it was just the innocent fantasy of a child, but there was something in the way she looked at him that touched him deeply. "Would you like that?" he asked, deciding to indulge in her fantasy. "I would love it. I would wear the prettiest dress in the world, and there would be flowers everywhere, and a big cake with lots of chocolate." Her eyes sparkled with enthusiasm. "And Nana Rose would be there too, and all the doctors and nurses who take care of me." "It would be a very special wedding," he agreed, feeling his heart squeeze. "Do you promise that if I get better, we can do it?" The millionaire looked at that extraordinary child, with her innocent faith and her grandiose dreams, and realized that he would do anything to fulfill her wishes. "I promise." During the following weeks, the girl's health fluctuated constantly. There were days when she was full of energy, playing and drawing, and others when she could barely keep her eyes open. Rose rarely left the hospital, sleeping in an armchair next to the bed, and the businessman had practically transferred his office to the waiting room. It was during one of those vigils that something unexpected happened. The girl was going through a particularly difficult crisis with a high fever and difficulty breathing when she called both the millionaire and Rose close to the bed. "I want to say something important," she said in a weak but determined voice. "What is it, Angel?" asked Rose, holding her little hand. "I know I'm very sick. I heard the doctors talking when they thought I was sleeping." The blood of the two adults ran cold. They had been so careful to protect her from the truth about her condition. "Don't worry," she continued, surprisingly calm for a 4-year-old. "I'm not afraid, but I want to ask for something." "Anything," said the millionaire, struggling to keep his voice steady. "If I can't get better, if I have to go to heaven like my real mom, can I have my wedding before?" The silence that followed was deafening. Rose began to cry silently, while the businessman felt as if someone had ripped his heart out of his chest. "Please," insisted the girl, "I just want to feel like a real princess once, with a pretty dress and flowers and everything." It was at this moment that the millionaire made a decision that would change not only the last days of her life, but would also transform his own existence forever. The millionaire spent the entire night awake, walking through the hospital corridors while processing the girl's request. His footsteps echoed in the silence of the dawn, and with each movement his determination grew stronger. If that extraordinary child wanted to feel like a princess, he would use all his wealth and influence to make it a reality. The next morning, he began making calls. First to the best children's fashion designer in the city, then to florists specializing in luxury events, decorators, photographers, and even a renowned chef. Each conversation began the same way. "No matter the cost, I need the best you can offer." "Sir," said his personal assistant during a call, "the budget for this event already exceeds the value of some of your smaller properties." "I don't care," he replied without hesitation. "Liquidate some more investments if necessary. Convert bitcoins to dollars, sell stocks, do whatever it takes. This is the most important investment of my life." While organizing everything in the smallest detail, he watched the girl through the window of the room. She spent hours drawing more wedding dresses, each more elaborate than the last. Rose remained by her side, reading stories of princesses and fairy tales that made the child's eyes sparkle with joy. "Prince," called the girl when he entered the room the following afternoon. "Have you decided about my request?" "I have," he replied, kneeling next to the bed. "It will be the most beautiful wedding this city has ever seen." The smile that spread across her face was radiant, illuminating the entire room. "Really? With a princess dress and everything?" "With everything a princess deserves." In the next 3 days, the hospital garden was transformed into a fairy tale setting. White and pink flowers were arranged in elegant arches, golden chairs were lined up for guests, and an improvised altar was created under a pergola covered with roses. The businessman had hired a team of decorators who worked day and night to create something magical. The dress was made especially for her by one of the most renowned designers in the country. It was of pure white satin, with delicate details in pearls and crystals, perfectly adapted to her fragile size. A small crown of natural flowers would complete the look, along with crystal shoes that seemed straight out of a fairy tale. "She will feel like a true princess," commented the designer when he brought the dress for approval. "I've never done anything as special as this." Rose helped organize the smaller details, from the bouquet made with flowers from the same garden where the girl played to the choice of songs that would be played during the ceremony. Her gratitude towards the businessman had turned into something close to veneration. "Why are you doing all this?" she asked during one of the planning sessions. "Because she taught me something I had forgotten," he replied, "that there are things more valuable than all the money in the world." The medical team was also invited to participate. Doctors, nurses, and staff who had cared for the girl during her weeks of hospitalization received special invitations. Some initially hesitated, thinking it would be inappropriate, but the child's joy was so contagious that everyone ended up accepting. "I've never seen such a brave child," commented the head nurse. "She faces each treatment with a smile, always worried about making others feel better." On the eve of the ceremony, the girl had a relapse. Her temperature rose dangerously during the dawn, and for a few hours, the doctors feared that she would not have the strength to participate in her own wedding. The millionaire remained by her side all night, holding her little hand while she fought the fever. "Prince," she murmured during a moment of consciousness, "are we still getting married tomorrow?" "Of course we are," he replied, kissing her hot forehead. Princesses always manage to make their dreams come true. On the morning of the big day, by a medical miracle that no one could explain, the fever broke, and she woke up with more energy than she had shown in weeks. It was as if her body had saved strength specifically for that moment. "It's my wedding day," she exclaimed when she saw Rose preparing the dress next to the bed. "I'm going to be a real princess." The process of getting dressed was careful and emotional. Rose helped her with every detail, from the delicate dress to the small crown of flowers. When she was ready, the girl looked at herself in the mirror they had brought especially for the room, and her tears of joy moved everyone present. "Am I pretty?" she asked, turning slowly so that everyone could see. "You are the most beautiful princess in the world," replied the millionaire, himself fighting back emotion. The garden was packed when she made her entrance. Doctors, nurses, hospital staff, and even some patients who had received special permission to watch the ceremony. Everyone stood up when they saw the little bride walking slowly down the flower-lined aisle, Rose by her side as matron of honor. The businessman was waiting at the altar wearing an impeccable tuxedo, but his eyes were fixed only on her. The child radiated such pure and genuine happiness that it made several people in the audience start to cry with emotion. "You look beautiful, Princess," he said, as she reached the altar. "Thank you, Prince," she replied with a radiant smile. "This is the happiest day of my life." The officiant was a chaplain from the hospital who had agreed to conduct the symbolic ceremony. He spoke about love, hope, and how some special people enter our lives to teach us important lessons about what really matters. When it came time for the vows, the girl asked to speak first. With her fragile but determined voice, she said, "Prince, you taught me that princesses can be loved even when they are sick. I promise to be your princess forever, even if I have to go to heaven." The words broke the hearts of everyone present, but she said them with such sweetness and sincerity that they transformed the sadness into something close to ecstasy. The millionaire made his vows with tears in his eyes. "Little princess, you taught me that true love has no conditions or limitations. I promise to take care of you and love you forever, no matter what happens." When they were declared that they could kiss, he delicately kissed her forehead, and she laughed with a joy so pure that it echoed throughout the entire garden. The party that followed was intimate but perfect. There was a 3-tiered cake decorated with sugar flowers, soft music, and much love circulating among all those present. The girl danced with her prince, twirled in her dress, and received congratulations from everyone as if she were a real bride. But it was at the end of the night, when she was tired but radiant, that something unexpected happened. She asked for the microphone that had been used during the ceremony, and with the millionaire's help, climbed onto a chair to speak to all the guests. "I want to thank everyone for making my dream come true," she said with her sweet voice. "But there's one thing you don't know, and I need to tell you." The garden became completely silent. All the guests looked at the small figure in her white dress, who held the microphone with her delicate little hands. Rose approached instinctively, worried about what the child might reveal, but something in the girl's serene expression made her stop. "I know you think I don't understand things," she began with her sweet but firm voice. "But I hear when the doctors talk in the hallway. I know I'm very sick and that I may not have much time." A murmur of shock ran through the audience. The millionaire felt his legs weaken, but he remained by her side, offering physical and emotional support. "Don't be sad," continued the girl, surprising everyone with her maturity, "because today I felt like a real princess, and princesses don't get sad at their weddings." Tears began to stream down the faces of practically everyone present, but she maintained her radiant smile. "I want everyone to know that this was the happiest day of my life. And if I have to go to heaven like my mum, I'm going to tell her about my prince who made all my dreams come true." The silence that followed was charged with pure emotion. Then, spontaneously, all those present began to applaud. It was not a common applause, but an emotional ovation for a child who had demonstrated more courage and wisdom than many adults. In the weeks following the wedding, something inexplicable happened. The girl's condition, which doctors had expected to deteriorate rapidly, remained stable. She maintained her energy, her appetite improved, and the tests showed signs that her body was responding better to the treatments. "It's difficult to explain medically," admitted the chief physician during a consultation. "Sometimes we see cases where the patient's emotional state significantly influences the response to treatment. Her happiness may be literally helping her to fight the disease." The millionaire seized this window of hope to redouble his efforts. He brought in more international specialists, authorized experimental treatments available only in other countries, and converted more of his assets into bitcoins and stocks to pay for everything. His net worth was decreasing rapidly, but he had never felt richer in purpose. "Prince," said the girl one sunny afternoon, "can I tell you a secret?" "Of course, Princess. I've been drawing other things besides wedding dresses." She pulled a notebook from under her pillow. "Want to see?" What he found on the pages left him speechless. There were drawings of him building hospitals, caring for other sick children, being hugged by grateful families. In each image, he appeared as a kind of hero, saving children and bringing hope to people who needed it. "Why did you draw me doing these things?" he asked, moved. "Because I saw how you take care of me and Nana Rose, and I thought there must be many other children out there who need a prince like you." The simplicity and wisdom in her answer touched him deeply. During all those years focused only on accumulating wealth and expanding his business, he had never considered using his fortune to help others more broadly. "Do you think I should do this?" "I think you were born for it," she replied with conviction. "Princes exist to protect people." Inspired by her words, the businessman began researching children's medical needs in the city. He discovered that there were hundreds of children in situations similar to the girls, families who did not have the resources for adequate treatment and overcrowded and poorly equipped institutions. "Rose," he said one morning, "what if we created something permanent? A place where children like her could receive the best treatment available, regardless of their family's financial situation." Rose, who had become not only her caregiver, but also a confidant in recent months, looked at him with admiration. "You're thinking of building a hospital." "More than a hospital. A complete pediatric treatment center with a multidisciplinary team, state-of-the-art equipment, and above all, an environment that makes children feel loved and special." The idea took shape in the weeks that followed. He used his contacts to acquire a strategic plot of land in the area, hired the best architects specializing in hospital projects, and began planning something revolutionary in pediatric care. "We want to create a place where every child feels like she felt on her wedding day," he explained to the team of architects. "Not just a hospital, but a place of healing, hope, and joy." The girl followed each stage of the planning with growing enthusiasm. Despite her still fragile condition, she had become a kind of child consultant for the project, suggesting cheerful colors, gardens with flowers, and even a special room for parties and celebrations. "There has to be a place where children can play wedding too," she said seriously, "because sometimes dreams help us to stay strong." 3 months after the wedding, the doctors brought news that no one expected. The experimental treatments had worked better than any medical prediction. The girl's condition, although still serious, was no longer considered terminal in the short term. "I can't promise a complete cure," explained the international specialist who had been brought in specifically to evaluate her. "But with adequate care and continued treatment, she may have a much longer and normal life than initially predicted." The news was received with tears of joy by Rose and the millionaire. The girl, with her peculiar wisdom, just smiled and said, "I knew princesses are stronger than they seem." During the following months, while the construction of the medical center progressed, something beautiful began to blossom between the businessman and Rose. What had begun as a partnership to care for the child had transformed into something deeper. They discovered that they shared similar values, similar dreams, and above all, an unconditional love for the girl who had brought them together. "Rose," he said one night after the child fell asleep, "can I ask you a question?" "Sure. Would you accept to marry me? For real this time?" Rose looked at him with surprise, but in her eyes there was something that suggested she had also thought about this possibility. "And the little one? How would she react?" "I think she would be happy to see that her prince and her Nana really love each other." It was then that the girl's voice came from the room. "I heard everything, and yes, I want you to get married. That way we'll be a real family." They ran to the room and found the child sitting on the bed, smiling mischievously. She had woken up and listened to the entire conversation. "How long have you been awake?" asked Rose, pretending to be angry. "Long enough to know that you love each other," she replied. "And can I be the flower girl?" Her request sealed the decision. The second wedding would be different from the first. Not a fantasy to fulfill the dream of a sick child, but a real celebration of the love that had blossomed between three people who had met in the most improbable circumstances. But while they were planning this new ceremony, an unexpected discovery was about to shake their lives again. During a routine examination session, the doctors found something in the girl's old records that no one had noticed before. Information that would completely change their understanding of her true identity. "We need to talk urgently," said the chief physician, with an expression that mixed surprise and concern. "We found something about her past that you need to know." The hospital meeting room was tense as the chief physician spread several documents on the table. Rose held the millionaire's hand tightly, while both tried to prepare for what they were about to hear. The girl had stayed in the room, playing with her dolls, oblivious to the conversation that could change everything again. "When we reviewed all the old medical files for her progress report, we found some inconsistencies in the original orphanage documents," began the doctor, adjusting his glasses. "We decided to investigate further." "What kind of inconsistencies?" asked the businessman, feeling a pang in his stomach. "To begin with, her age. The orphanage document said she was 2 years old when she arrived there, but our bone and dental exams suggest she was at least 3.5 years old." Rose frowned. "Does that mean she's older than we thought?" "It means that someone deliberately provided incorrect information about her. And that led us to investigate other aspects." The doctor picked up a different folder. "We were able to track down the hospital where she was born through some specific genetic tests." The silence in the room was deafening. The millionaire felt that he was about to discover something that would fundamentally change his understanding of the child who had become the center of his life. "She's not just an abandoned orphan," continued the doctor. "We discovered that she is the daughter of a prominent family in the city. Her biological parents are well-known people with considerable financial resources." The revelation hit Rose like lightning. "How so? If they have money, why was she abandoned?" "That's the most disturbing part of the story." The doctor took a deep breath. "She wasn't abandoned by her parents. She was kidnapped as a baby." The world seemed to stop around them. The businessman stood up abruptly, walking to the window while processing the devastating information. "Kidnapped," murmured Rose, her voice almost inaudible. "According to the records we were able to access, she disappeared from her home when she was only 8 months old. The parents conducted extensive searches, offered huge rewards, but they never managed to find her." "And how did she end up at the orphanage?" asked the millionaire, still with his back to the table. "Apparently, whoever kidnapped her kept her hidden for almost 2 years before abandoning her at the orphanage door. They probably realized it would be impossible to continue caring for a sick child without raising suspicions." Rose covered her face with her hands. "That means that during all this time, her parents have been looking—" "They have been, and still are," confirmed the doctor. "When we contacted the authorities with our findings, we discovered that the case is still active. The parents never gave up on finding her." The magnitude of the situation began to unfold completely. A family had spent years in agony looking for their daughter, while the child grew up believing she was an orphan. And now, when they had finally built an unconventional but loving family, everything could crumble again. "Do they know that we found her?" asked the businessman, turning to face the doctor. "Not yet. We wanted to talk to you first, considering everything you've done for her and the bond you've created." "But they have legal rights over her," said Rose in a broken voice. "She is their biological daughter." "Yes, they do. But the situation is complex. She doesn't know them. She has experienced significant trauma, and she has formed deep bonds with you. Any transition would need to be carefully planned. The millionaire returned to the table, leaning heavily on the chair. Who are they? The biological parents? A couple of successful entrepreneurs. He owns a hotel chain. She is a pediatrician. They have 2 other children, but they never stopped looking for their missing daughter. The irony of the situation was devastating. While he was using his fortune to care for a child he thought was an orphan, her real parents had spent years and probably millions looking for her. "How are we going to tell her this?" asked Rose, tears streaming down her face. "Very carefully," replied the doctor, "and perhaps we should start by meeting the biological parents first." 2 days later, a meeting that none of them had imagined possible took place in the hospital conference room. On one side of the table were the millionaire and Rose, nervous and apprehensive. On the other, an elegant couple in their 40s, whose eyes carried years of suffering and unrealized hope. "Thank you," said the woman, her voice trembling with emotion. "Thank you for taking care of our little one during all this time." Her name was Evelyn. She was a pediatrician, as the doctor had mentioned, and her eyes had the same gentle expression that sometimes appeared on the girl's face. Her husband, Robert, was a tall and serious man, but when he spoke about his daughter, his voice softened completely. "You can't imagine what these years have been like for us," said Robert. "Every birthday, every holiday, every night we spent awake imagining where she would be, if she was okay, if she was alive." "We never stopped looking," continued Evelyn. "We hired private detectives, offered rewards, did media campaigns. But it was as if she had simply disappeared from the face of the earth." The millionaire felt compelled to speak. "She's an extraordinary child, brave, intelligent, full of love to give. You created someone very special." "Actually," said Evelyn with a sad smile, "it seems that you who raised her. She was barely 8 months old when she disappeared. Everything she has become, all the qualities she has, were developed away from us." The pain in her voice was palpable. Rose felt her heart break, understanding the anguish of that mother who had lost the most important first years in her daughter's life. "How do you want to proceed?" asked Rose, forcing herself to be practical despite the emotion. "We would like to meet her," said Robert. "We don't want to traumatize her or force anything. Just, we want to see her, know that she is well." "She's much better," confirmed the businessman. "The treatments that we were able to provide are working. Her condition has stabilized significantly." Evelyn perked up. "Can I see the medical records? As a pediatrician, maybe I can help with the treatment." During the following hours, the medical records were reviewed, stories were shared, and slowly a complex picture began to emerge. The biological parents were genuinely loving people who had suffered immensely. The millionaire and Rose had saved the child's life when she needed it most. And at the center of it all was a 4-year-old girl who had no idea that her life was about to change again. "There's something you need to know," said Evelyn hesitantly. "We have other children, a 6-year-old boy and a 3-year-old girl. They know about their missing sister and always ask when she's coming home." The revelation that the girl had siblings was another shock. Not only did she have biological parents, but an entire family waiting for her. "How will she react to all this?" asked Rose. "Children are more resilient than we imagine," said Evelyn, "but we need to be very careful. She has built a life here, important bonds. We can't just tear her away from everything she knows." It was then that Robert made a suggestion that surprised everyone. "What if we didn't do that? What if we found a way to honor both the family she knows and her biological family?" "What do you mean?" asked the millionaire. "You saved our daughter. You gave her love, medical care, a family. We don't want to destroy that. We want to be part of it." The proposal was revolutionary and complex, but there was something about it that made sense to everyone involved. Perhaps it was possible to create an extended family where the girl could have the best of both worlds. But first, They needed to tell her about her biological parents. And no one knew how a 4-year-old would react to discovering that her entire life had been based on incorrect information. "Let's tell her tomorrow," decided the millionaire. "Together. She deserves to know the truth, even if it's hard to understand." As they prepared to leave, Evelyn turned to Rose. "Can I ask you a question? As mother to mother?" "Sure. Do you love her as if she were your biological daughter?" Rose didn't hesitate. "More than my own life. Then you understand how we feel about her, even having lost all these years." It was at this moment that Rose fully understood the complexity of the situation. Two mothers who loved the same child, each having sacrificed everything for her in different ways. That night, while the girl slept peacefully in her hospital bed, 4 adults planned how to tell a child that her life was about to expand in unimaginable ways. The morning arrived loaded with tension. The millionaire, Rose, Evelyn, and Robert gathered in the hospital hallway before entering the girl's room. Everyone had spent the night awake, thinking about the best way to approach a situation that no child psychology manual could have prepared them for. "Remember," said Evelyn, her professional pediatrician voice trying to mask the mother's emotion. "She's only 4 years old. It needs to be simple, honest, but not overwhelming." When they entered the room, they found the girl drawing on her bed, humming softly a song that Rose used to sing to her. Seeing the group, her eyes lit up, but she soon noticed the tension in the air. "Why is everyone looking sad?" she asked, putting her crayon aside. "Did something happen?" The millionaire approached and sat on the edge of the bed. "Angel, we have something important to tell you. It's not bad, but it's big." "Big like what?" "You remember how you came to Nana Rose?" he asked carefully. "I was a baby, and someone left me at the orphanage door," she replied, repeating the story Rose had told. "Well, we found out there was more to the story," continued the businessman. "You weren't abandoned. You were taken from your family when you were very little." The girl tilted her head, confused. "Taken how?" Rose approached. "Angel, you have a real mom and dad who've been looking for you all this time." The silence that followed was heavy. The child looked at each adult in the room, slowly processing the information with her 4-year-old mind. "Are they here?" she asked finally. Evelyn stepped forward, her hands trembling. "I'm your mom, honey, and this is your dad." The girl studied Evelyn for a long moment, then looked at Robert. There was no immediate recognition, but there was also no fear. "You're pretty," she said simply. "You seem like good people." The innocent response made Evelyn begin to cry silently. 4 years of searching, and her daughter was seeing her as a kind stranger. "Does that mean I have to go away?" asked the girl, looking worriedly at Rose and the millionaire. "Can't I stay with my family anymore?" "We're your family too," said Robert quickly, "but we don't want to take you away from people who love you. We want to be part of your family." "How so?" The millionaire explained. "It means that now you have even more people who love you. Nana Rose, me, and now your real parents too." "And do I have brothers and sisters?" she asked, surprising everyone with the direct question. Evelyn smiled through her tears. "Yes, you do. A 6-year-old brother and a 3-year-old sister. They've always known about you and always wanted to meet you." The girl's eyes sparkled with genuine curiosity. "Do they like to draw?" "They love it," replied Robert. "Your brother is very good at drawing cars, and your sister makes the prettiest birds you've ever seen." "I like to draw birds too," she exclaimed, excited for the first time since the beginning of the conversation. In the following hours, a careful integration began. Evelyn showed photos of her other children. Robert told stories about the house where she had been born, and gradually the girl was opening up to the idea of having a biological family. "Can I ask a question?" she said during the afternoon. "Anything," replied Evelyn. "If you're my real parents, does that mean Nana Rose and the prince aren't my family anymore?" The question went straight to the heart of the issue that everyone feared to address. Rose held her breath, waiting for the answer. "No, honey," said Evelyn firmly. "They'll always be your family. You're just going to have more family now." "Like a giant family?" "Exactly like a giant family." The concept seemed to make sense to her. During the following days, visits were organized. The biological siblings came to meet her, bringing drawings and toys. The meeting was less dramatic than everyone expected. The children simply accepted each other with the natural ease of childhood. "You're smaller than I imagined," said the 6-year-old brother. "But your drawings are pretty." "Do you want to play princess with me?" asked the 3-year-old sister. Within hours, the three were playing together as if they had never been separated. During this period, the adults worked on the practical aspects of the situation. Legal papers were reviewed, custody arrangements were discussed, and slowly a plan began to emerge. "We propose something unconventional," said Robert during a meeting with lawyers. "Real shared custody. She spends time with us. Time with Rose and you, but is never forced to choose between families." "Would that work?" asked the millionaire. "If everyone is willing to put her well-being above any personal claim." "Yes," replied the lawyer. It was Evelyn who made the most surprising proposal. "What if we moved closer? We buy a house in the same area. The children can come and go freely, and she has 2 homes instead of being divided between them." The idea was radical, but it made sense. 2 families who loved the same child, willing to restructure their lives to ensure that she had the best of both worlds. "You would do that?" asked Rose, incredulous. "We lost 4 years of her life," said Robert. "We're not going to waste any more time fighting over her when we can simply love her together." While the adults were planning this new family structure, the girl continued to surprise everyone with her adaptability. She began to call Evelyn and Robert Mom Evelyn and Dad Robert, keeping Rose as Nana Rose and the millionaire as Prince. "Now I have lots of names for everyone," she said with satisfaction. "And no one gets confused." 2 weeks later, an important decision needed to be made about the pediatric medical center that was being built. Construction was almost complete, but the millionaire wondered if it still made sense to continue, considering the changes in his life. "Of course it makes sense," said the girl when he mentioned his doubts. "There are lots of sick children who need a prince like you. But now you have your family back. Maybe I'm not needed anymore." She looked at him with a seriousness beyond her years. "Prince, you didn't take care of me because I didn't have a family. You took care of me because you have a good heart. That hasn't changed." The simple wisdom of the child touched him deeply. She was right. His motivation to help had not arisen from her lack of family, but from his own need for purpose and meaning. "Besides," she continued, "Mom Evelyn is a children's doctor. She can help at the hospital too." The suggestion led to a conversation between Evelyn and the businessman that resulted in an unexpected partnership. Evelyn offered to be the medical director of the center, combining her pediatric expertise with the humanized vision that he had developed. "It would be a dream," said Evelyn. "A place where sick children can be treated with love beyond medicine. And where each one can feel special," added Robert, who also offered to help with the administrative management. Suddenly, the medical center project had become a joint family venture, uniting 2 couples who months before were complete strangers. "You know what's most amazing?" said Rose one night, as they watched the girl play with her new siblings. "She brought us all together. One small child managed to create a family of 6 adults who barely knew each other." 7, corrected the millionaire. "Don't forget her." At the end of that month, something unexpected happened during a routine medical exam. The results showed such a significant improvement in the girl's condition that the doctors were genuinely surprised. "It's almost as if her body has decided to fight harder," commented the specialist. "Sometimes the positive emotional environment has effects that medicine can't fully explain." But it was during this same consultation that a final discovery was made, something that none of them expected and that would once again change the trajectory of all of them. The doctor's office was silent as the specialist reviewed the tests for the third time. His expression oscillated between surprise and confusion, as if the results challenged everything he knew about medicine. The millionaire, Rose, Evelyn, and Robert waited anxiously while the girl played in the corner of the room, oblivious to the adult's tension. "I need to be very clear about what we're seeing here," said the doctor finally, taking off his glasses to clean them. "The tests show an almost complete reversal of the degenerative condition." "What do you mean, reversal?" asked Evelyn, her experience as a pediatrician making her question immediately. "The disease that was attacking her body systems has not only stopped progressing, it's literally receding. The markers that indicated cell deterioration are returning to normal levels." The silence that followed was absolute. Rose covered her mouth with her hands, while Robert stood up abruptly from the chair. "Is that possible?" asked the millionaire, his voice barely controlling the emotion. "Theoretically, no. This specific condition has no known cure, much less spontaneous reversal." The doctor paused. "But the tests don't lie. Her body is healing itself." "What does that mean for her?" asked Evelyn, tears beginning to form in her eyes. "It means that with continued care she may have a completely normal life, long, healthy, without limitations." The girl, realizing that everyone was looking at her, stopped playing. "Why is everyone crying? Did I do something wrong?" "No, Angel," said Rose, rushing to hug her. "You did everything right. You're getting really well." "I always knew," said the girl naturally. "Princesses don't stay sick forever." In the weeks that followed, the news spread throughout the hospital like a medical miracle. The child who had arrived with little hope was now running through the corridors, playing with renewed energy and radiating a vitality that infected everyone around her. "It's as if she had saved all that strength during the time she spent sick," commented a nurse. "Now that she can use it, she doesn't stop." The pediatric medical center was also taking shape quickly. Evelyn had taken over as medical director with enthusiasm, implementing protocols that combined cutting-edge treatment with humanized care. Robert coordinated the administrative management, applying his business experience to create an efficient but welcoming operation. "We want every child who enters here to feel like she felt on her wedding day," Evelyn explained to the medical staff that was being hired. "Special, loved, full of hope." The millionaire continued to invest heavily in the project, but now his resources were complemented by the funds that Evelyn and Robert also allocated to the center. His Bitcoin and stock investments had recovered, and the cash flow allowed not only the maintenance of the hospital, but also the expansion of services. During this period, the unconventional family dynamic they had created began to work surprisingly harmoniously. The girl divided her time between the two houses, 3 days with Evelyn and Robert, 3 days with Rose and the millionaire, and 1 day when all the families gathered. "It's like having 2 different but equally happy lives," she said one afternoon while helping Rose prepare cookies. "At Mom Evelyn's house I play with my siblings. At our house I draw with you and the prince." "And do you like it both ways?" asked Rose. "I like it a lot. It's like having 2 different adventures in the same week." But it was during one of these family afternoons that something unexpected happened. The girl was playing in the garden of the house that Evelyn and Robert had bought near theirs when she found a box buried under an old tree. "Mom, Evelyn!" she shouted, running into the house with the dirty box in her hands. "I found treasure." When they opened the box, they found old photographs, yellowed letters, and some personal objects that clearly belonged to the former owners of the property. But it was one of the letters that caught Evelyn's attention. "This letter is addressed to the family who lives here after us," she read aloud, "and it's dated 5 years ago." "What does it say?" asked Robert, curious. Evelyn continued reading. "If you're reading this, it means our house has found a new family. We hope you're people who value love above all else, because this house was built with a lot of love. We lived here for 40 years, raised our children, and saw much happiness within these walls. May you also find the same joy." "How beautiful," commented the girl. "They wanted us to be happy here." It was then that Rose arrived with the millionaire for the family dinner they had planned. When they learned of the discovery, the businessman became thoughtful. "You know," he said, "since we started this journey, it seems like everything conspires to work out, as if there were greater forces helping us." "Maybe there are," replied Evelyn. "Or maybe when people come together for true love, the universe collaborates." During dinner, the girl made a proposal that surprised everyone. "Can we have a party to open our hospital?" "What kind of party?" asked Robert. "A big party, with all the children who are going to be treated there, their families, the doctors, everyone." Her eyes sparkled with enthusiasm. "And there can be cake and music and weddings," completed the millionaire, smiling. "For the children who want to feel special." The idea evolved quickly. Instead of a formal and cold inauguration, they would organize a large community festival. Children from all over the city would be invited, especially those who would need the services of the medical center. "It will be like a big collective wedding," explained the girl to her siblings. "All the children, they can dress up like princes and princesses for a day." In the following months, preparations for the festival consumed the entire extended family. Prince leveraged his contacts to secure sponsorships. Helena coordinated medical aspects to ensure sick children could participate safely. Robert organized logistics, and Rose oversaw the production of special costumes for each child. "I never imagined I'd be organizing mass weddings for kids," Robert chuckled, reviewing vendor lists. "It's the most beautiful thing we've ever done," Helena replied, "bringing joy to children who spend so much time in hospitals." As preparations advanced, Angel continued to surprise everyone with her renewed energy and peculiar wisdom. She became a sort of ambassador for the project, visiting other children in the pediatric treatment center and telling them about the festival. "You'll get to be a princess for a whole day," she told a 5-year-old undergoing chemotherapy. "With a pretty dress and everything?" "Even though I'm bald?" the child asked. "Especially because you're bald. Brave princesses are the prettiest of all." It was during one of these visits that something touching happened. Angel was talking to a 4-year-old boy who had lost a leg in an accident when he asked if he could participate in the festival, even though he was broken. "You're not broken," Angel said firmly. "You're a warrior, and warriors are even more special than princes." Helena, who was accompanying the visit, overheard the conversation. That night, she had a conversation with Prince that resulted in an important decision. "We need to expand the concept," she said. "Not just a festival, but a permanent program, where children with any kind of challenge can feel special regularly." "Like what?" "Monthly parties, celebrations of small medical victories, symbolic ceremonies whenever a child needs extra hope." Helena paused, "transforming the pediatric treatment center into a place where emotional healing happens alongside the physical." The idea resonated deeply with Prince. His journey had begun with the desire to help one child, but had evolved into something much larger. "You're right," he said. "We're not just building a hospital, we're creating a place where emotional miracles can happen." Just then, Angel appeared in the room where they were talking, carrying another one of her drawings. This time, she had drawn a large castle surrounded by gardens, with hundreds of small, happy figures around it. "What's this, Angel?" Rose asked. "It's our hospital when it's finished," she replied. "With all the children we're going to help being happy." Looking closer, they saw she had written words around the image. "A place where dreams come true." At that moment, they all understood they were about to create something much bigger than they had ever imagined. But there was still one last surprise waiting for them, something that would completely transform the meaning of everything they had built together. The week before the inaugural festival brought growing excitement. The pediatric treatment center was finally ready, with its colorful walls, blooming gardens, and rooms designed specifically to make children feel at home. But it was on a Thursday morning that the last and most unexpected surprise arrived. Rose was organizing the costumes when she received a call at the hospital. On the other end of the line, a trembling female voice identified herself as a social worker from a neighboring city. "Ms. Rose, I'm calling about a very specific case. We found a woman who's been hospitalized in a psychiatric clinic for the past 5 years. She became very agitated when she saw a news report on television about your festival." "Agitated how?" Rose asked, feeling a chill. "She insists she recognizes one of the children in the images, a 4-year-old girl. She says it's her daughter." Rose almost dropped the phone. "What's her name?" "Marina Santos. She was hospitalized for a psychotic break after losing a daughter in traumatic circumstances. But now that she's stable, the doctors believe she may be telling the truth." Rose immediately called Helena and Prince. When the three gathered at the hospital, the social worker had already arrived with more disturbing details. "Marina Santos gave birth to a girl 5 years ago," the social worker explained. "But the child was kidnapped from the hospital when she was just 2 days old. The trauma was so severe that Marina had a complete mental breakdown." "2 days," Helena murmured, paling. "But our daughter was kidnapped when she was 8 months old. Apparently the kidnapper kept the baby for 8 months before taking her to your house. Marina has spent all these years believing her daughter was dead." The revelation was devastating. Not only had Angel been kidnapped, but there was another biological mother who had suffered for 5 years, believing she had lost her newborn child. "Where's Marina now?" Prince asked. "In a rehab clinic. She's stable, but still fragile. The doctors say seeing her daughter alive could be both a cure and a dangerous shock." Helena stood up, walking to the window. "This means that we aren't her biological parents. It means the situation is even more complex than we imagined," the social worker replied. "We need DNA tests to confirm, but the dates match perfectly." That afternoon, as Angel played happily with her adoptive siblings, 4 adults faced the possibility that the entire family structure they had built could crumble again. "How are we going to tell her this?" Rose asked, her voice heavy with emotional exhaustion. "First, let's confirm the facts," Helena said, her medical training taking over. "Then, if it's true, we'll deal with it as a family." "Family," Robert repeated. "That's what we are now, regardless of genetics." DNA tests were conducted the next day. The wait for the results was agonizing, but when they arrived, they confirmed what everyone already suspected. Marina Santos was indeed Angel's biological mother. "Does this change anything?" Angel asked when they finally told her about Marina. "Now I have 3 moms?" The simplicity with which she processed the information again surprised all the adults. "If you want to, yes," Prince replied. "But you don't have to decide anything now." "Can I meet her?" Helena hesitated. She got very sick with sadness when she thought you were gone. It might be difficult for her. Then maybe I can help her be less sad," Angel said, with the innocent logic that characterized her. The meeting was scheduled for 2 days before the festival, at the pediatric treatment center itself, which was still being prepared. Marina arrived accompanied by a psychiatrist and a nurse, visibly nervous but with her eyes shining with hope. When she saw Angel for the first time, Marina began to cry silently. Angel, in response, walked up to her without fear. "Are you my mom, Marina?" she asked simply. "I am," Marina replied in a trembling voice. "You're my little one. I thought that I would never see you again. But now you're seeing me, and I'm okay. I have lots of people taking care of me." The conversation that followed was delicate but touching. Marina recounted how she had dreamed of that moment for 5 years, how she had fought against mental illness to recover in the hope of one day reuniting with her daughter. "Aren't you mad at me for not protecting you?" Marina asked. No, Angel replied. You were sick. Sick people can't protect anyone, but now you're better so you can be my mum too. Over the next few hours, a new family dynamic began to form. Marina would be included in the unconventional structure that already existed, with continuous medical supervision to ensure her stability. We're officially the most complicated family in town, Robert commented, trying to ease the tension with humor. We're the most loving family in town, Angel corrected. That's more important. On the day of the festival, something magical happened. More than 200 children attended, some coming from neighboring cities specifically to participate. Each received a special costume, princess dresses, prince capes, flower crowns, and the pediatric treatment center was transformed into a true fairy tale castle. I've never seen so many happy children in one place, commented a journalist covering the event. Angel, now completely healed and radiant with health, served as the hostess of the festival. She circulated among the children, ensuring each felt special, telling her own story of overcoming adversity and spreading joy wherever she went. This princess here, she said to a shy 3-year-old, is the bravest I've ever seen. You know why? Because she came even though she was scared. It was during the main ceremony of the festival that something exciting happened. Several families who had been touched by Angel's story offered to sponsor other children in need, creating a support network that went far beyond what anyone had imagined. You've inspired a revolution of love, the mayor of the city said during his speech. This isn't just a pediatric treatment center, it's a symbol of hope. Prince, watching everything from a corner of the garden, reflected on the extraordinary journey that had begun with a child crying in the rain. His investments in bitcoins and stocks had grown exponentially. His businesses were thriving, but none of that mattered compared to the emotional assets he had built. Prince, Angel said, appearing beside him. Are you happy? Happier than I imagined possible, he replied. Me too. But you know what makes me happiest? What? Knowing that other children are going to feel the way I feel. Loved. As the festival continued around them with music, laughter, and celebration, Prince understood that he had found something much more valuable than any fortune, the true purpose of his life. But there was still one last surprise waiting for them all. At the end of that magical night, Angel made an announcement that would leave a permanent mark on the heart of every person present. I want to say something to everyone, she said, climbing back onto the makeshift stage. Today wasn't just a festival, it was the beginning of a giant family. She looked at the crowd of children, families, doctors, and volunteers gathered in the illuminated garden. You know what my biggest dream is now? The garden fell completely silent as everyone present awaited Angel's words. The colorful lights of the festival created a magical atmosphere, and she held the microphone with her little hands, radiating a confidence that contrasted with her age. My biggest dream, she said slowly, is that no child in the world feels alone when they're sick or scared. The silence that followed was filled with emotion. Then a child in the crowd began to applaud, followed by another, until the entire garden erupted in applause that seemed to have no end. And you know how we're going to do that? She continued when the applause subsided. By being a giant family. Everyone taking care of everyone. Her words touched something deep in each person present. Families who had arrived as strangers began to hug each other. Doctors cried openly, and a sense of unity filled the entire atmosphere. In the months that followed, what had begun as a pediatric treatment center transformed into something revolutionary. The concept of giant family spread beyond the walls of the hospital, creating a support network that connected families of sick children throughout the region. I've never seen anything like it, commented a visiting doctor from another state. You haven't just created a hospital, you've created a movement. Prince, now officially Angel's adoptive father along with Rose, watched with admiration as she had become the heart of a social transformation. His investments continued to thrive, The applications in cryptocurrencies had tripled in value, and his cash flow allowed for constant expansions of the pediatric treatment center. "She changed not only our lives," he said to Helena during a meeting of the Administrative Council. "She changed the way this city views childcare." "And it won't stop here," Helena replied, showing letters that arrived daily. "We have requests from other cities wanting to replicate our model." During this period, the family dynamic continued to evolve harmoniously. Angel now officially had 3 moms, Rose, Helena, and Marina, and 2 dads, Prince and Robert. Marina had fully recovered and volunteered at the center, helping other mothers facing traumatic situations. "It's funny," Angel commented one afternoon while drawing in her living room with Rose and Prince. "Before I didn't have any family. Now I have too much family." "Is there too much family?" Rose asked, smiling. "No, I'm just saying it's funny how things change." It was during one of these family afternoons that something unexpected happened. Angel, now 5 years old and in perfect health, brought a drawing different from the usual. "What's this, Angel?" Prince asked, observing the complex image. "It's my life," she replied simply. "From when I was a baby until now." The drawing showed a visual timeline, a small figure alone, then being cared for by Rose, meeting Prince, getting sick, getting symbolically married, meeting Helena and Robert, discovering Marina, and finally surrounded by dozens of other happy children. "And this here at the end?" Rose asked, pointing to a part of the drawing that showed Angel older, wearing a white coat. "It's when I grow up and become a doctor like Mom Helena. I'm going to take care of children too." The statement deeply touched Helena, who had become an important mother figure in Angel's life. "Are you sure you want to be a doctor?" "I am, but not a common doctor. A doctor who makes children feel special." 6 months later, surprising news reached them. The story of Angel and the Pediatric Treatment Center had attracted international attention, and an American foundation specializing in humanitarian projects offered funding to expand the model to other countries. "They want to create 20 similar centers in Latin America," the foundation representative explained during a video conference. "Using the protocol you developed." Prince looked at his extended family gathered in the room. "What do you think?" "I think we should accept," Helena said immediately, "if it can help more children." "But there's one condition," Angel interrupted, making everyone laugh. "Each new center needs to have a festival just like ours, so that children feel special." "It's a non-negotiable condition," Robert agreed, smiling. During the following year, the expansion project took shape. Prince traveled to several countries overseeing the construction of the new centers, always accompanied by Angel during school vacations. She had become a sort of child ambassador for the project, naturally interacting with children from different cultures and languages. "It's incredible how she connects with any child," commented a doctor in Mexico during the inauguration of the second center. "It doesn't matter the language. Love is universal." At each inauguration, Angel made sure to organize a festival similar to the first, always insisting that each child feel like a princess or prince for a day. "Do you know why we do this?" she asked the local children. "Because you are special, and special people deserve to feel magical." Back in her hometown, the original center had become a model of medical excellence and humanized care. The waiting list included families from several countries, but the policy established by Angel was clear. No child would be refused for lack of financial resources. "How do we keep this sustainable?" asked a journalist during an interview. "Because when you do good in the heart," replied Angel, now 6 years old and articulating surprisingly mature thoughts, "there are always people who want to help." It was true. The network of sponsors had grown exponentially, including not only wealthy businessmen, but ordinary families who contributed small monthly amounts. The crowdfunding model had become so efficient that it allowed not only operation, but constant reinvestment in improvements, During this period, something beautiful also happened in the personal lives of the family. Rose and Prince made their union official in a real and emotional wedding, with Angel as the flower girl. Helena and Robert renewed their vows in a joint ceremony, and Marina found love again with one of the volunteer doctors at the center. "Now everyone has a partner," Angel observed during the party. "Except me." "You have plenty of time for that," Prince said, laughing. "I know, but when I grow up I want to marry someone who also takes care of sick children. That way we can be a team." The determination with which she spoke about the future impressed everyone. At 6 years old, she already demonstrated a clear vocation for medicine and humanized care, often accompanying Helena during consultations and showing a natural sensitivity to dealing with children in distress. "She has a gift," Helena commented during a medical meeting. "Children who arrive here crying and scared are laughing with her in 10 minutes. "It's because she understands what they feel," Marina replied. "She's been through everything they're going through." It was during one of these accompanied consultations that something touching happened. A 4-year-old girl had arrived at the pediatric treatment center with the same condition that Angel had faced years before. The child was terrified, refusing to cooperate with the exams. "Can I talk to her?" Angel asked Helena. What happened next moved the entire medical team. She sat next to the frightened child and simply began to tell her own story. "I was very sick too," she said in a gentle voice, "and I was very scared too. But you know what I found out?" "What?" asked the sick girl, stopping crying. "I found out that doctors are like fairy godmothers. They do magic to make us feel better. And this hospital is a magic castle where the magic happens." In 15 minutes, the child, who had arrived in a panic, was happily collaborating with all the exams, convinced that she was participating in a real fairy tale. "How does she do it?" asked the responsible doctor, impressed. "She turns medicine into magic," Helena replied, "and makes it seem like healing is an adventure, not a punishment." That night, as the family gathered for the weekly dinner they had established as a tradition, Angel made an observation that revealed how much she had matured. "You know what the most important thing I've learned is?" she said, looking around the table where Rose, Prince, Helena, Robert, Marina, and her adoptive siblings were. "What is it, Angel?" Rose asked. "That love doesn't end when we share it. It only gets bigger." The silence that followed was filled with emotion. Each adult at the table reflected on how that little child had taught profound lessons about family, sacrifice, and purpose. But it was at that moment that she made an announcement that would once again change the course of their lives. "And that's why I've decided something important. When I grow up and become a doctor, I want to adopt many children who don't have families, so that they can feel what I feel too." Angel's declaration about adopting children in the future echoed around the dinner table, creating a moment of deep reflection. Rose discreetly wiped away a tear, while Prince smiled with pride at the extraordinary maturity of his adoptive daughter. "Have you thought about how many children you'd like to adopt?" Helena asked, genuinely curious about Angel's plans. "Many," she replied without hesitation. "Maybe 10 or 15, or however many show up needing a family." Robert laughed gently. "That'll be a lively house." "It'll be a happy house," she corrected, "like ours." In the following months, Angel's determination regarding the future only strengthened. Now 6 years old, she demonstrated an impressive understanding of medicine and palliative care. During visits to the center, it was not uncommon to find her explaining simple procedures to other children or comforting worried parents. "She has a natural communication ability that it took me years to develop," Helena commented to a colleague. "It's as if she intuitively understands people's emotional needs." The pediatric treatment center had become an international reference. Delegations of doctors from various countries visited regularly to learn about the humanized care model they had developed. At each visit, Angel made sure to participate in the presentations. "The secret isn't in the equipment or medicine," she explained to a group of Japanese doctors. "It's in making each child feel loved." Her words were translated simultaneously, but the sincerity of her voice transcended any linguistic barrier. During this period, Prince's assets continued to grow exponentially. His investments in bitcoins had appreciated beyond any forecast, and his applications in stocks of medical technology companies would yield extraordinary dividends. But now all that capital had a clear and definitive purpose. "I want to establish a permanent fund," he said during a meeting with his financial advisors, "something that guarantees the operation of all the medical centers even after I'm no longer here." "We're talking about billions of dollars," one of the advisors warned. "Are you sure you want to commit so much equity?" "I'm absolutely sure. This is the best application I can make of my money." The creation of the fund was announced during the second annual festival of the Pediatric Treatment Center, which had become a tradition awaited by the entire community. More than 500 children participated, coming from different countries specifically for the event. "This fund will ensure that no child in the world is refused for lack of resources," Prince announced during the ceremony. "It's our way of ensuring that love has no financial limitations." Angel, now recognized as the official ambassador of the medical centers, made her own moving speech. "When I was little and sick, good people took care of me. Now I want all sick children to have the same good people taking care of them." The applause that followed lasted almost 5 minutes, with families of different nationalities joining in an ovation that celebrated not only her words, but everything they represented. After the festival, something unexpected happened. An international journalist who had covered the event wrote an article that went viral on social media, telling the complete story of Angel from her early days on the street to her transformation into a symbol of global hope. "She's not just a survivor," the journalist wrote. "She's living proof that unconditional love can turn tragedy into a miracle." The article resulted in a flood of contacts from families around the world, offering help, telling similar stories, and asking for guidance to replicate the model in their own communities. "We're creating a global network," Marina observed during a meeting of the extended family. "Our little girl has become the center of an international humanitarian movement." "She's always been special," Rose said, watching Angel draw maps of the world where she marked the locations of existing and planned medical centers. "It just took the world to find out." During the same period, Angel began to demonstrate early academic interest. Helena had arranged private lessons in basic medical sciences, which she absorbed with impressive ease. "I want to understand how the body works," she said during a lesson on child anatomy, "to be able to explain it better to the children who arrive scared." Her motivation for learning was not personal ambition, but the genuine desire to help others. Each knowledge acquired was immediately applied in her interactions with young patients at the center. It was during one of these interactions that something touching happened. A 3-year-old girl had arrived at the pediatric treatment center with a terminal condition similar to the one Angel had faced years before. The child was inconsolable, refusing treatment and crying constantly. "Can I try to help?" Angel asked Helena. What happened next became legendary among the medical staff. She sat next to the bed of the sick child and began to tell a story. "Once upon a time, there was a little princess who got very sick," she began in a soft voice. "She was very scared because she didn't know the magic castle where she had arrived. For 2 hours, she transformed the hospital into a fairy tale where doctors were benevolent wizards, nurses were helpful fairies, and medicines were magic healing potions. And you know what happened to the princess?" she asked at the end of the story. "What?" murmured the sick girl, now completely involved. "She found out that she was stronger than she imagined, and that being scared doesn't mean being weak, it means being human. From that day on, the child cooperated completely with the treatment, always asking for the princess of the stories and asking for new chapters of the tale that had begun. She created a new therapeutic method, commented the child psychologist at the center. She transformed medicine into narrative, making treatment part of a heroic adventure. The technique was documented and began to be taught to other child health professionals, further expanding the impact of the model they had created. Meanwhile, the family dynamic continued to evolve harmoniously. Angel's adoptive siblings, now 8 and 6 years old, had developed their own talents. The boy showed aptitude for biomedical engineering, wanting to create more child-friendly medical equipment, and the younger girl showed a vocation for art therapy. "We're a family of caregivers," Robert observed during a dinner. "Each has found their way to help others. It's because she taught us that caring is the most important thing in the world," Helena replied, looking affectionately at the child who had changed all their lives. At the end of that year, a special ceremony was organized to mark the 3rd anniversary of the first pediatric treatment center. Representatives from all the international centers traveled to participate, creating a meeting that seemed like a United Nations assembly dedicated to childcare. 3 years ago, a sick child taught me that true wealth is not measured in money, Prince said during his keynote speech. Today, that lesson has transformed into a network that spans 15 countries and has already helped more than 10,000 children. When it was Angel's turn to speak, now 7 years old and articulating thoughts with surprising clarity, she addressed the international audience with a message that would be remembered by all present. "Adult people sometimes think that children don't understand important things," she began. "But children understand the most important thing of all, that love is the only thing that really matters." She paused, looking at the hundreds of attentive faces. "And love has no borders. It doesn't matter what language you speak or what country you come from. When a child is sick, we all feel the same thing, the desire to help." The silence that followed was filled with emotion before exploding into the longest and most enthusiastic applause that any of those present had ever witnessed. But it was at the end of the ceremony that she made an announcement that surprised even her family. "And that's why I want to tell you about my new dream. When I grow up, I don't just want to be a doctor. I want to be the first president in the world dedicated only to caring for children." The statement about being president of the world caused fond laughter in the audience, but those who knew Angel knew that she spoke with total seriousness. In the following months, her determination only intensified, and she began to study international organizations and children's rights with a dedication that was impressive for someone of 7 years old. "She's reading UNICEF reports," Helena commented, finding Angel in the pediatric treatment center library surrounded by complex documents. "And understanding. I want to know how the world works," she explained, looking up from a report on global child mortality, "to be able to change the parts that are wrong." Prince, observing the extraordinary intellectual development of his adoptive daughter, decided to invest even more in her education. He hired tutors specializing in international relations, human rights, and public health, creating a personalized curriculum that combined academic knowledge with practical experience. "She learns faster than any child I've ever met," reported one of the tutors. "But the most impressive thing is how she connects everything she learns with practical applications to help other children." During this period, something significant happened on the international stage. The network of pediatric treatment centers had attracted so much attention that representatives of the United Nations requested an official meeting to discuss the possibility of adopting the model as a global program. "They want our little family to become a United Nations program," Robert explained during a family meeting. "It would be official recognition that we've created something revolutionary." "And what does that mean?" asked Angel, always practical in her questions. "It means that your dream of caring for all the children in the world can come true," Rose replied, moved by the possibility. The meeting at the United Nations was scheduled for 3 months later, and Angel insisted on participating as the official representative of the medical centers. "I understand children better than any adult," she argued when some suggested that she was too young for such responsibility. "Because I was one of them." During the preparations for the trip, something touching happened. Children from all the international medical centers sent drawings and letters to her, creating a true visual embassy of support. "Look how many children are rooting for you," Marina said, helping to organize the hundreds of drawings that arrived daily. "They're not rooting for me," Angel corrected. "They're rooting for hope." On the day of the trip to the international meeting, something unexpected happened at the airport. Dozens of families showed up to say goodbye, turning the departure into a spontaneous celebration. "You represent all of us," said a mother who had lost a child years before, but now worked as a volunteer at the center. "Take our love with you." The arrival in New York was equally exciting. Journalists from various countries wanted to interview the girl who changed global pediatric medicine, but she remained focused on the mission. "I didn't come here to be famous," she said during a press conference. "I came here to ask for help for the children who don't yet know love." At the United Nations headquarters, something historic happened. For the first time in the organization's history, a 7-year-old child was invited to speak at the General Assembly as the official representative of a humanitarian program. "Delegates from all countries," she began, her small but firm voice echoing through the immense auditorium. "You are parents and mothers, grandmothers and grandfathers. All of you were once children too." The silence in the assembly was total. Experienced diplomats listened attentively to every word of a girl who spoke with authority based on lived experience. "When I was little and dying, good people saved me. Not because I was special, but because they understood something important. Every child deserves a chance." She paused, looking around the crowded auditorium. "You have the power to give that chance to millions of children. It's not about money or politics. It's about remembering that you were also children who needed protection." The 15-minute speech ended with a standing ovation that lasted almost 10 minutes. Diplomats hardened by years of complex negotiations had tears in their eyes. "In 30 years of working here," the Secretary General murmured to an aide, "I've never seen the Assembly so united." The negotiations that followed were surprisingly quick. Within days, an agreement was reached to transform the network of medical centers into an official United Nations program, with guaranteed funding and expansion to 50 countries in the next 5 years. "You've just witnessed a diplomatic miracle," commented a veteran ambassador. "A child accomplished in a week what would take years of negotiation." During the agreement signing ceremony, Angel was invited to sign as an official witness, becoming the youngest person in history to participate in an international treaty. "How does it feel to be part of history?" a journalist asked. "I feel happy because now more children will be able to dream about the future," she replied simply. The trip back was triumphant. At the airport, they found an even larger crowd waiting, including delegations from other countries who wanted to personally meet the child ambassador of humanity. "She's changed the world," Helena commented, watching Angel greet each person with the same caring attention. "She's taught us that changing the world is possible," Prince corrected. "We just needed the courage to try." Back in her hometown, an official reception was organized by the mayor. The entire community gathered to celebrate not only international success, but mainly what it represented for the future. "Our city has become the cradle of a humanitarian revolution," the mayor said in his speech. "And it all started with a little girl who refused to give up hope." During the celebration, something moving happened. Angel called to the stage all the people who had been important in her journey. Rose, Prince, Helena, Robert, Marina, the doctors, nurses, and even some of the children who had been treated in the early years of the center. "I want everyone to see something," she said, pointing to the diverse group on stage. "This is a real family, not because we have the same blood, but because we chose to love each other." She looked at the crowd gathered in the city's main square. "And you are our family too, because when a child is sick anywhere in the world, we all feel it, and when a child gets better, we all celebrate." It was at that moment that she made the announcement that would be remembered as the most emotional moment of the entire celebration. And that's why I want to tell you about our next adventure. We're going to create the first university in the world dedicated only to teaching people to care for children with love. The idea had been born during the international trip when she realized that technical knowledge alone was not enough. It was also necessary to teach the emotional dimension of care. "It will be a different university," she continued, "where doctors, nurses, psychologists, and even politicians will learn that the medicine of the future needs to include love in every prescription." The university project represented the natural evolution of everything they had built, a place where the next generation of professionals would be formed not only with technical competence, but with the deep understanding that caring for children is an act of love that can transform the world. As the celebration continued around them, the extended family gathered in a corner of the square, watching the girl who had changed all their lives interact with the hundreds of people who had come to celebrate not only her successes, but mainly the hope she represented for the future. 5 years had passed since that historic celebration in the city square. Angel, now 12 years old, had become an extraordinary young woman who continued to surprise the world with her wisdom and determination. The university she had dreamed of became a reality, functioning as a campus attached to the original pediatric treatment center. "I never imagined I would see a 12-year-old giving lessons to experienced doctors," commented a visiting professor, watching her explain communication techniques with pediatric patients to a class of residents. The International University of Humanized Care had attracted students from all over the world. The unique curriculum combined traditional medicine with child psychology, art therapy, and mainly what they called heart medicine, the discipline created by Angel herself. "Caring isn't just about healing the body," she explained during a masterclass. "It's about healing the soul. And that only happens when we treat each child as if they were the most important person in the world." Her revolutionary methods had been documented in dozens of scientific studies. The technique of transforming medical treatments into heroic narratives was being applied in hospitals in 60 countries, with extraordinary results in the cooperation of child patients. Prince, now 42 years old, watched the growth of his adoptive daughter with an overflowing paternal pride. His investments continued to thrive. The Bitcoin assets had reached astronomical values, and his dividends from shares of medical technology companies allowed to finance constant expansions of the programs. "She's surpassed all our most ambitious dreams," he said to Rose during a walk through the gardens of the complex that now occupied several blocks of the city. "She hasn't surpassed our dreams," Rose corrected, watching Angel give an interview to international journalists. "She's taught us to dream bigger." The global network of medical centers had grown to 80 countries, serving more than 500,000 children annually. Each center maintained the original philosophy: excellent medical care combined with unconditional love. Helena, now International Medical Director of the program, coordinated a team of thousands of professionals spread across the world. "The impact goes beyond the numbers," she reported during annual meetings. "We've changed the way pediatric medicine is practiced globally." Robert had become an expert in managing humanitarian organizations, creating financial sustainability models that guaranteed the independence of the centers. Marina worked as a family support coordinator, helping parents and mothers cope with the trauma of having seriously ill children. We are a family that has multiplied into a world family, Marina observed during the weekly dinner that continued to be a sacred tradition. But it was during one of these family meetings that Angel made an announcement that caught them completely by surprise. "I received a very special invitation," she said with a mysterious smile. "The Nobel Prize Committee wants to nominate me for the Peace Prize." The silence that followed was of pure shock. Rose dropped the fork she was holding, while Prince stood up abruptly from his chair. That's unbelievable," Helena murmured. "You would be the youngest person in history to receive this honor." "It's not about age," Angel replied with the maturity that had always characterized her. "It's about showing that true peace begins when we care for our children." The Nobel Prize ceremony was scheduled for December of that year. In the months leading up to the event, delegations from all the countries where medical centers existed traveled to Oslo specifically to support her. "There's never been so much international interest in a Nobel ceremony," commented an organizer. "She's managed to unite the world around a cause." On the day of the ceremony, something magical happened. Thousands of children from all over the world sent drawings that were displayed throughout the center of Oslo, creating a children's art gallery that moved all visitors. "It's as if the whole world of children is here celebrating," said the King of Norway during the official reception. When it came time for the acceptance speech, Angel, now a 12-year-old articulating ideas with impressive clarity, took the podium before an audience that included world leaders, renowned scientists, and representatives of humanitarian organizations. "Your Majesties, Excellencies, friends," she began, her voice echoing through the auditorium. "When I was 4 years old and dying in a hospital bed, I never imagined that one day I would be here." She paused, looking at the extended family sitting in the front row. "But I'm here because extraordinary people taught me that love is the most powerful force in the universe, and that when we use that force to care for the most vulnerable, we create a better world." The 20-minute speech traced her journey from her early days as an abandoned child to becoming the leader of a global movement. But it was at the end that she left her deepest mark. "This prize is not mine," she said, holding up the gold medal. "It belongs to every doctor who chose to treat with care, to every nurse who embraced a frightened child, to every family who opened their arms to welcome those in need." She looked directly into the cameras that were broadcasting the event to billions of people around the world. "But above all, this prize belongs to all the children in the world who still dream of a better future. For them, I promise, we will never stop fighting for a world where every child feels loved." The applause that followed was the longest in the history of the Nobel Prizes, lasting more than 15 minutes. World leaders wept openly, diplomats hugged each other, and a sense of genuine hope filled the auditorium. After the ceremony, during the official reception, something touching happened. Children from a local orphanage were invited to meet the youngest laureate in history. The meeting was simple but deeply symbolic. "You can change the world too," she said to a 5-year-old boy who looked at her with admiration. "You just need to remember that you are special." Back in her hometown a week later, the reception was even more emotional than the return from the United Nations. The entire city mobilized to celebrate not only the prize, but mainly what it represented. "Our girl has become a symbol of world hope," the mayor said in his speech. "But for us, she will always be our little angel who taught us that miracles happen when people unite for love." During the celebration, something unexpected happened. Angel called to the stage a 4-year-old child who was being treated at the pediatric treatment center, a girl with the same condition she had faced years before. "This is our next ambassador," she announced, holding the child in her arms, "because the mission of caring for the children of the world never ends. It always passes on to the next generation." As the crowd applauded emotionally, Prince reflected on the extraordinary journey that had begun on a rainy afternoon when he saw a child crying on the sidewalk. His investments in bitcoins and stocks had multiplied beyond any expectation. His cash flow allowed him to finance programs on a global scale. But none of that mattered compared to the emotional assets he had built. "You know what was the best investment I've ever made?" he asked Rose while they watched the celebration. "What?" "The moment I decided to stop the car on that rainy afternoon and help an unknown child." Rose smiled, remembering that first meeting that had changed all their lives. "It wasn't an investment," she said. "It was a miracle." That night, as the family gathered at home for an intimate celebration, Angel made a final revelation that would forever seal the legacy of her extraordinary journey. "I have one last secret to tell," she said, smiling at everyone around the table. "All these years, I knew that you thought you were saving my life. But the truth is that you gave me the chance to save your lives." She looked at each person present: Rose, Prince, Helena, Robert, Marina, her adoptive siblings. "Because before you met me, you were good people who lived normal lives. After you met me, you became heroes who changed the world." The silence that followed was filled with emotion and understanding. Each of them recognized the profound truth in her words. The child they had saved had, in reality, saved them too. "And now," she continued, with the radiant smile that had won hearts around the world, "we are a family of heroes who will continue changing the world, one child at a time." As they hugged each other around the table, surrounded by the drawings she continued to make, now showing happy children from all countries of the world, everyone understood that they had lived something very rare. A story where true love not only overcame all adversities, but transformed tragedy into a global miracle. The girl who had started as an abandoned and sick child had become living proof that when love is unconditional and hope is unwavering, there are no limits to the good that one person can do in the world. And this was just the beginning of her story. If you enjoyed this wonderful story, please comment, giving a rating from 0 to 10. Your opinion is very important, and if you love beautiful stories, subscribe to my channel. I promise to make your day better with my videos.